Now, let's get some perspective from a US-based expert on Seoul's withdrawal decision from this intelligence sharing pact with Japan. Joining us on Skype, I'm happy to say, is Henry Sokolski, Executive Director of the Nonproliferation Policy Education Center, which is a think tank based in Virginia. Henry, I have to say I'm generally not surprised by much these days, being in this news business for over 10 years now, but I was genuinely dumbfounded to hear this news yesterday. As someone with years of experience of Northeast Asia issues, what's your reaction to South Korea's move? And as I asked Professor Kim a moment ago, do you see any way this situation improves, or is it just going to keep going further and further down the plug hole, so to speak?
Well, left alone, I think there's no question it's going to get worse. As the previous speaker, Professor Kim, explained, it really pays domestically to do this in Japan and South Korea. There's not much of a break unless the United States gets involved much more seriously than it has so far. And so it's not good. It will get worse unless the United States gets more involved.
In what sense do you think it might get worse then?
Well, I mean, there's so much great history between these two countries, so much to work with. More trade problems. The cooperation on anything related to national security, there are still other things that can be taken down, as was explained by Professor Kim. Why stop where we are?
Right.
You know, unless there is some pushback from, I think, the United States, unfortunately, I think the domestic logic is not yet exhausted itself.
Okay, we'll get into where this leaves the United States in just a moment's time. But I wanted to get your opinion on just how badly this move handicaps trilateral coordination and cooperation between the US, South Korea and Japan in dealing with the continued nuclear missile threats posed by North Korea. Let's not forget the regime has fired off several short-range missiles just over the past few weeks alone.
Well, look, you've already heard from the Pentagon that ought to be dispositive as to how the United States views it, grimly. You've heard from the Japanese. They're not pleased. We haven't heard from China or North Korea, but I'm pretty sure they're very happy. Now, it doesn't take brilliance to see through what the answer to your question is. The alliance relationship between the United States and Japan and between the United States and South Korea is vitally important to keep China and North Korea from taking liberties in the region. They know that if these three countries work together, they will have their hands full doing anything aggressive. To the extent that we look divided in any way whatsoever, it's to their advantage, and they will work this diplomatically. Watch.
Right, and let's get the US approach to this then. The Trump administration, well, up until about 10 hours ago, when Pompeo made some comments, has really maintained a kind of hands-off approach to this problem between its two closest allies in this region. Do you think that Washington really now has to step up to the plate, especially as you touched upon in your last answer? Because otherwise China and to a lesser extent, perhaps North Korea, are really going to capitalize on this enormous wedge that has formed between Seoul, Tokyo, and potentially between Seoul and Washington as well?
Well, you know, it's almost clear from the question what the answer is. Yes, and I think in specific something that the people in Washington and at the White House and Congress and the Pentagon need to start thinking about, as well as folks in Seoul and Tokyo, is there are going to be basing agreements that are going to be renegotiated with the United States. And perhaps it's time quietly to start thinking about the terms more broadly than just money and basing rights. I think we need to start saying to Japan, the terms of our agreement with you will depend a great deal on whether you drop your trade restrictions and restore your preferred trade status with South Korea. And with regard to South Korea, when we get to that basing agreement, that the terms of that will be colored by whether or not South Korea is willing to put its further legal demands for reparations on ice, and whether they're willing to rejoin this agreement or its functional equivalent. Whether we'll do that, I don't know, but if not, it's a mistake.
Right, well, we'll have to see how this unfolds, but it's seriously an extremely serious situation with as yet unknown implications, not only for South Korea, but for the region as a whole. And who knows, perhaps Pompeo or the new US Defense Secretary could be making their way over to South Korea and Japan very soon. Henry, we appreciate your insights and thanks for sharing them with us today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.